Hey everyone, it's Harry, your host. Thanks for being here today. I want to talk with you about something that affects a lot of people. Maybe you, maybe someone you love, and that's Social Security. Social Security just announced what they're calling important improvements, changes that are already affecting how people get help, how fast things move, and how easy it is to actually reach a real human being. And yeah, on paper, some of this sounds pretty encouraging. But the real question, and the one I keep hearing from you, is this. Is it actually enough to make a real difference in everyday life? Before we get into all of that, let me ask you something real quick, and yeah, just think about it for a second and let me know in the comments. When you think about dealing with Social Security, what's the first word that comes to mind? All right, so let's talk through what's actually changing here, because some of this is more meaningful than it might sound at first. So for a long time, Social Security has kind of felt stuck in another era. You know, limited hours, long hold times, websites that go down at night, forms that feel like they were designed in the 90s and never music updated. And that's frustrating, especially when you're dealing with something important like retirement income, disability benefits, or survivor benefits. This isn't optional stuff. This is rent money, grocery money, medication money. One of the biggest changes that doesn't sound flashy but actually matters a lot is that Social Security's online accounts are now available around the clock. Before this, the website would shut down for more than a full day each week because of system limits and maintenance. That meant if you worked odd hours, or you had caregiving responsibilities, or you just needed to check something late at night, you're out of luck. Now you can log in anytime, day or night music, to check your benefit amount, review your earnings record, update information, all of that. And I know some people will say, okay, but I don't use the website. And that's fair. But for millions of people, especially those who do feel comfortable online, this alone removes a huge barrier. It treats Social Security more like a bank or an insurance portal, something that's there when you need it, not just when the office is open. Now, the phones. This is the one I hear about the most. People waiting on hold for an hour, 2 hours, sometimes longer, just to ask a simple question, and that wears people down. According to Social Security, they answered about 65% more calls last year compared to the year before. That's a big jump. Music. The average time it takes to get someone on a national number is now in the single digits, meaning minutes, not an hour. Plus, they've also changed how calls are handled. A lot more issues can now be solved through automated options or callbacks, so you don't have to sit there listening to hold music wondering if the call dropped. About 30% of calls can now be handled instantly through upgraded phone systems. That doesn't mean every call is perfect, but it does mean fewer people stuck in limbo. If you've ever tried to help a parent or a grandparent call Social Security, you know how big this is. Waiting on hold isn't just annoying, it's exhausting. Music especially for older adults or people dealing with health issues. And then there's in-person visits. For years, people have complained about crowded offices and long waits. Social Security says average wait times at field offices dropped by nearly 30% in 1 year. If you have an appointment, the average wait is now around 6 minutes. That's actually pretty impressive for a federal agency that serves tens of millions of people. Now, I want to slow down here for a second because this is where expectations matter. Shorter wait times don't fix everything. You still might have complicated cases. You still might need follow-up visits. But cutting down that initial stress, the standing around, the uncertainty that changes how people experience the system. Another area that's seen progress is disability claims. This has been one of Social Security's biggest pain point for decades. People apply when they're already struggling, often medically and financially, and then they wait and wait, music, and wait. At one point, there were more than 1.2 million disability claims sitting in backlog. That number has dropped by about a third. Now, that doesn't mean everyone gets approved faster, and it doesn't mean the system is perfect. But for someone who's been waiting months, even shaving off a few weeks or a couple months can mean the difference between staying afloat and falling behind on everything. There's also the issue of payments that were part of the Social Security Fairness Act. More than 3 million payments totaling over $17 billion were sent out, and they were completed months ahead of schedule. That's not something that usually happens with government payments. Getting money out the door faster matters when people are counting on it. So, on the surface, yeah, this all sounds pretty good. Faster service, better access, fewer delays. And it's fair to say that these are real improvements. Even the Social Security Advisory Board, which has been critical in the past, acknowledged that progress has been made and gave credit where it's due. But here's where the conversation gets more complicated. And this is where a lot of you start asking tougher questions. Even with these improvements, Social Security is still facing some very real challenges. Music technology upgrades help, but they don't solve everything. Some people don't have reliable internet. Some people aren't comfortable using online systems, and when agencies push digital tools too fast, there's a risk that the most vulnerable people fall through the cracks. There's also the staffing issue. While service metrics are improving, the agency has faced cuts and staffing pressures. Efficiency can go up for a while with better systems, but eventually people still need people. Someone has to review claims, answer complex questions, fix errors, and if staffing doesn't keep up with demand, those gains can fade. And then there's the bigger picture question, the one that tends to hang over every Social Security discussion. Customer service improvements don't fix long-term funding concerns. They don't change the fact that more people are retiring and fewer workers are paying in music relative to the size of the program. That's not a criticism of these changes. It's just reality. So, what these improvements really do is make the system more livable right now. They reduce friction. They reduce stress. They help people get answers and money faster. And honestly, for day-to-day life, that matters a lot. But is it enough? That depends on what you're expecting. If you're hoping for smoother interactions, fewer headaches, and less time wasted trying to get help, then yeah, these changes move things in the right direction. If you're expecting these improvements to solve every problem people have with Social Security, then no, music, they're not going to do that. And I think that's where it's important to be balanced. It's okay to acknowledge progress without pretending everything is fixed. It's also okay to stay skeptical and keep pushing for better service, better access, and long-term stability. I'll say this from personal experience. Helping family members deal with Social Security has always been more stressful than it needed to be. Not because the people working there didn't care, but because the systems were outdated and overwhelmed. Anything that reduces that friction, even a little, has real value. And here's something to keep in mind. Improvements like these tend to be fragile. They need continued investment. They need transparency. They need feedback from people actually using the system. If those things stop, the system can slide backward just as fast as it moved forward. So, when people ask me, enough, I usually say this. It's a solid step, but it's not the finish line. It's progress, not a promise. And hey, if you haven't shared your thoughts yet, feel free to join the conversation. I really do read through what music you say. At the end of the day, Social Security isn't just a program. It's a lifeline. Improvements that make it easier to access, easier to understand, and less stressful to deal with are worth paying attention to. The key now is making sure those improvements stick and that no one gets left behind as things continue to change. So yeah, keep asking questions, keep holding the system accountable, and keep an eye on how these changes actually play out in real life, not just in press releases. And as always, I'll keep breaking this stuff down with you step by step so we can all make sense of what it really means.